happening now with Laura. In all of the bacchanal and rah and dezord of last week Thursday, as we celebrated and commemorated International Women's Day, were you aware that it was also World Kidney Day? And that the theme was women and kidney disease? You know, oftentimes we do these fantastic romps, as I call them, and we think we've done something that is so good because for us, in our immediacy, in our little bubbles, in our me world, it feels good. Lots of people have been calling and continue to call me and ask me, how come I didn't notice you at the Raise Your Voice March last week, Thursday? I know that's your kind of thing self. I know when it comes to women, you go all crazy and you go all out. And I say to them, and I continue to say to them, I have marched with Raise Your Voice in the past, and I dare say I will march with them again. But what took place on Thursday was a sorry excuse for an incident which should have marked women's stride in a man's world. You know that song by James Brown? This is a man's world. That was our day to mark our strides in a man's world. You know, and some people, they get so agitated because, you know, I'm not giving them the answer that they want to hear. And they go like, oh, you know, you people, that's how y'all are, you know. I said, how are we? You never want to hear an opposing. I said, listen, I have all the time in the world for people who oppose my view, who oppose any view. It means that you've got a backbone. You've got something to say. You've got a voice. But when you will take something which is supposed to be so pure and uncomplicated, and you dilute the message, and you tarnish it, and you compromise it, and you bring politics into it, there's something fundamentally wrong. And then they go, oh, but women's issues are politics, or political issues, or women's issues. Some crap, they don't even know what they're talking about. And I said, no problem. I don't have a problem with making women's issues political. But when you take the politics, the partisan politics, and you superimpose it on something which is supposed to be pure, on something which is supposed to highlight the best of us, there's something wrong with that. I didn't hear anything about, in this millennium, in this era, in 2018, why is it that our women continue to be raped and plundered and murdered with no detection or very little detection, with subsequently little prosecution? I didn't hear anything like that. I wanted to hear things like justice for Sadia Byron. I wanted to hear an outcry of maybe renaming the crisis center, the Mary Ratcliffe Center. After all, she is the epitome of what a mother should be like. She gave her life literally for her children. Did we hear anything like that? No. Did we hear anything about the Valerie Lloyds of this world? No, we didn't. Did we hear anything about our dear girl from Saltibus who died, ripped, murdered, while she got ready to give evidence in a previous case where she was also raped? Little Valinda Joseph, did we hear anything about her? En passant, we heard about Sadia Byron. En passant. But what about the real issues? So you wanted to talk about healthcare, but would it behoove you so much to talk about healthcare as it related to women? After all, it was Women's International Day. how in this world, in 2018, our women still continue to die from childbirth. How children, mothers who go through 9 months of preparation could still bear a child, give birth to a child who dies moments later because a doctor did not diagnose or was unable to tell that that child growing within the mother's womb was fatally diseased. Did we hear anything like that? Did we hear anything about the 13-year-olds and the 9-year-olds who continue to be raped, conceive children, bear these children, give birth to these children, and are completely damaged for the rest of their lives? Did we hear anything about that? But no, we want to talk about DSH. How does DSH relate to women, particularly, specifically? Can somebody tell me? Nobody can tell me. All we know is we have a government that part of the population is displeased with. And so, they must find a way to hijack the things that are important to a lot of us and to superimpose their feelings onto it. And then we want to have a problem, and we want to not be able to understand why some of us want to have nothing to do with it. And you have every right to march against any government that you feel is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, is not fulfilling its mandate. But don't hijack a process. Don't come with a grandiose idea. Flip it on its head and say, oh, we weren't allowed to carry placards, and this government is hell-bent on shushing and shutting us up. No. Come straight. Be man and woman enough about it. And then say to the nation, here it is. I made an application for a march and I was denied. These are the subject areas that I wanted to discuss at that march and I was denied. But don't come under cloak and dagger and say, you know, smoke and mirrors and say, oh, you know, all of a sudden they denied us. I saw a listing of maybe 20, 25 items to be discussed at that march. And I said, Copa Bola, that's not for you. Because I wanted to hear strong women, women with voices, survivors. I wanted to hear their voices. I wanted to hear their thoughts on where they've been and where they're going. I didn't hear anything like that. And so I was vastly disappointed. Imagine men coming up to me and saying, oh, you're women, you're your own worst enemy. Blah, 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 blah. Sad day. Sad day. And I hope that the men of St. Lucia take note. Come November, or is it October? I think it's November. When they have their Men's Day, that their march and their rally will be a far cry different from the farce which took place on Thursday. So I asked a number of women, did you know that the 8th of March, last week, Thursday, commemorated World Kidney Day? What? I said, you didn't know? I said, no, they didn't know. I said, and did you know that the theme for World Kidney Day 2018 was women and kidney disease? No, they didn't know. And I would have thought that that would have been an appropriate time for women to understand their bodies, to understand the implication of renal disease on themselves, their families, their communities. But did we hear anything? No. And I'm certain that there were activities for to commemorate World Kidney Day. But with all of the furor and the bacchanal and all the noise that International Women's Day created in St. Lucia, nary a sound. How about I always say, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. We're due for a break, but when we come back, I will introduce to you my guests and our topic for this evening. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned and welcome back to What's Happening Now with Laura. Every March, the National Kidney Foundation partners with other organizations and other groups from around the world to make World Kidney Day a global event. The main purpose of World Kidney Day is to make people aware of how important the kidneys are to overall health and how they can prevent or slow down the progression of kidney disease. Millions of people around the world have chronic kidney disease, which can affect anyone, no matter the age, gender, race, or ethnic background. A yearly global theme, however, helps the larger kidney communities focus on a specific area of importance. And this year, I'm only assuming that because of the day falling on International Women's Day, the theme for 2018 was women and kidney disease. Now, many of you, if you follow this show regularly, will know that I have a very, very close and dear friend. She's like a sister to me who suffers and who's battling kidney disease. And so every time I hear about kidney disease, I get goose pimples all over. I get all emotional and I get so flustered. And for me, it's an area that I really, every opportunity that I get to talk about it, to bring it to the fore, I grab onto it. Because there's nothing worse than having a loved one afflicted with a disease, an illness that you could do nothing about, short of giving them your own kidney. And it's not as simple as just giving away your kidney. You have two of them. I could survive with one. Why not just give one? There must be a match. And it's the hardest thing in the world to know that you're willing, yet unable. Let me just read to you one survivor's account of her battle or her adventure with kidney disease. Her name is Rosella Piccillo, and she's 50 years old. And I'm reading this in her person. I was 33 when I found out that I was suffering from end-stage kidney disease. Throughout my life, I had never suffered from any particular disease. I was a healthy child. I only had measles. My tonsils and appendix were still where they were supposed to be. I grew up in a healthy environment. I practiced sport every day and had grade marks in school. I was, in other words, a totally normal child. 4 days after the fall of the Twin Towers, I fell too. It's amazing how when things happen to us, we're always able to relate it to a historical event. So for her, it was the Twin Towers crashing. 4 days after the fall of the Twin Towers, I fell too. From my comfortable chair, I suddenly found myself at the emergency room at a hospital because of a cracking headache. After going through an accurate screening of every single part of my body, doctors told me that my creatinine was very high at 13 and that my kidneys were so shrunk they were hard to see. How do you go from having normal-sized kidneys to kidneys that are so shrunk that the doctors can hardly see them? Tonight, my guests are Mrs. Nadia Wicks, and of course, my go-to guru when it comes to kidney disease, nephrologist Dr. Merle Clark. Oh my God! I just had a senior moment, and that's okay. That's okay. You know.
I forgive you.
Yeah. I just had a senior. I am so sorry, Dr. Clark. I said Charles, but Dr. Clark, she's my dear friend, you know, my go-to guru when it comes to kidney disease. Welcome, Dr. Clark, and welcome, Mrs. Wicks.
Thank you.
You're suffering. You're a survivor of kidney disease. Now, I don't know the lingo, the parlance to use for your condition, because are you a survivor, or you haven't gotten over it and you probably never will? So just give us an introduction as to who you are and what your condition is and what living with kidney disease is for you.
Okay. I wouldn't say that I'm a survivor, but I'm a warrior fighting this battle with this enemy that I cannot see. Okay? Kidney disease for me, it's something that came up just really silently out of nowhere. I was just basically living my life, and then I fell ill. It wasn't to say it was anything to do with my kidney. Like, you know, there's a pain or something. I had a pain in my knee. And then when I went to the doctor, within 3 months, I mean, my kidneys had already said goodbye. So it wasn't anything that I had any warning to say, okay, this is coming, so let me prepare.
How do you go from a pain in your knee to having no kidney?
End stage.
Yeah, I mean, your knee, your kidney, and I always go your kidney, but and Dr. Clark will tell you, because I have called her in the night. Oh my gosh, like, I'm going through this journey with a friend of mine, and I had a pain in my back, but it was a weird pain, and I go, oh my God, do you think I have kidney disease? And I called her, and I'm panicking, because you're going through this journey and you're not sure of anything. Everything that you once knew, it just goes out the door, because you realize how much you don't know and what's lurking out there within your own body, and you have no control over it.
Yes. And a lot of people believe that a lot of these diseases are bagay viemun.
Yes.
But no, it affects young people, older people, professional women, housewives, just children. Just about anybody can be afflicted with kidney disease. And sometimes it can happen because of your lifestyle. But there are some of us who are presently on dialysis that it could have been through lupus, it could have been through something hereditary, it could have been through just a myriad of different ailments that could bring us to this point. So a lot of people believe, you know, it doesn't happen to young people. Yes, it does. And we too have to cope. We too have to deal with it.
I totally hear you. I totally understand. I'm one of those people who really thought that kidney disease was something that only occurred because of your lifestyle or because of your age. So if you didn't take care of yourself and you became diabetic or hypertensive, then that would be a very real possibility for you somewhere in your future. Or if you were really old and, you know, well, the body parts are asking to be changed and you really can't change them. So this is something that's just a part of aging. I was a total believer of that until I met my girlfriend, who has been suffering from it since she was in her 20s. And I just couldn't understand. And for her, I think it's 1 in 4 of members in her family suffer from it. So it's a genetic condition that she has. What about you? Is that what it is for you? It's a genetic?
My mom had kidney failure, and right now we have a diagnosis for me. But at first it was hereditary, because my mom had it. I think an aunt of hers had kidney failure. So it seemed to be something that's in the family. So we're very careful with my other sisters, my children. We check regularly to make sure that nobody has to go through what they see me going through.
So you mentioned your children, so you're a mom.
Yes.
Did you have your children before you were diagnosed?
Yes.
Okay. And how has that been for you, being a mom before diagnosis and being a mom after diagnosis?
certainly you can appreciate that with any disease, you do not have the energy that you would like to have to do a lot of the tasks and a lot of the things that you would like to have. You know, my children are grown now, but when they were younger, it would be difficult to, you know, participate in school activities. Sometimes, you know, they want to help you for a project, but you just cannot because you're so tired, you're so weak, you know. And it has been tough. It has been tough. I'm also a wife, together with a mother. I do not work anymore, but I used to. And it can be really taxing on your body because your kidney does a lot of things in the body. Regulates blood pressure, help produce the hormone that produces the red blood cells, your bones, you know, just your skin, everything. So it can be tough because on top of having to deal with this disease, you have to deal with all the complications of it. If one day I decide to not use body lotion, I mean, I'll be ashy all over the place. My skin will be cracking up like somebody that maybe has leprosy or something. You know, I've had situations where my hair was coming out. You know, it can be tough. Right now, I'm dealing with insomnia. The last time I slept was Saturday during the day. So
Wow.
you wouldn't tell because thank you to my lovely sister. Thanks to Hannah. But it's tough dealing with kidney disease.
One of the things that I latched on to is not the fact that not only is it a physical illness, but it's also a lifestyle illness as well,
Yes.
because you're the lifestyle which you had become accustomed to being a married woman in a household that has two incomes. Now you have the one income because you're no longer able to work. So this disease seems to be not just a physical one, but also a lifestyle one. I'll go to Dr. Merle right now, and you're back.
Back.
And I dare say
Anyway.
you will be back many times as long as I have this platform. What is it? Talk to us a little bit about how this illness affects women and the impact that it has on women in particular.
All right. To start with, statistically, more women have kidney disease, chronic kidney disease, than men. What is important to note, however, is that women tend to come in earlier, and that's just a general thing in medicine. Women tend perhaps to be more cautious about their health, and perhaps tend to come in earlier for just about everything. Men will wait until they are literally dying to come in, and it's different with women. So with chronic kidney disease, there are 5 stages. As we said before, stage 1 to 5. The patients with stage 5 are those who require renal replacement therapy. That's hemodialysis, which is what we offer here, or kidney transplant, peritoneal dialysis, which are other modalities of renal replacement therapy. And as the name implies, renal replacement, you're replacing the functions or some of the functions of the kidneys. In fact, few of the functions of the kidneys is what those modalities replace, except, of course, a transplant when you're actually getting a new kidney. So in stage 1 to 4, or even more so stage 1 to 3, you certainly have more women. But the later stages, stages 4 and 5, you have more men. So when we look at our dialysis population, now we are the, of course, OKEU hospital. Of the 72 patients that we're now dialyzing, there are only 21 women. The large majority are men, despite the fact, however, if you look at the clinic, the outpatients clinic, where we see the large majority of patients, of course, who have earlier stages of kidney disease, not yet requiring dialysis, or some of them are requiring dialysis, but we still don't have the capacity for everybody yet, you certainly find more women. And that's quite telling. So,
21 out of 71
out of 72.
out
yeah.
of 72
women.
are women.
Yes. The rest are men.
That is startling.
It is. And we're looking at young people again. When you mentioned the fact that you thought, and most people think, that this is a disease of older people, like people thought of cancer. Cancer was a disease of older people. It really is not. And if you look at our population, our dialysis population, our average age, our median age is in the mid-40s. We have younger people, quite a few people younger than 40, and we have very few people older than 60.
Oh my God.
Again, that speaks to a selection bias perhaps on our part towards younger people as it pertains to dialysis, because again, we don't have the capacity for everybody. So we tend to select the younger, seemingly healthier patients with less cardiovascular the impact of the kidney disease on the heart, because kidney disease, of course, affects the heart, and that is a major problem. So these are many things to take into consideration. So it's a total fallacy that this is a disease of older people. As it pertains to women, how does kidney disease affect women? I mean, women are the backbone of the society. There's no getting away from that. I mean, they support the households. The income is no longer daddy goes to work and mommy stays at home. That certainly is no longer the case. I said Nadia was a professional. Nadia was a banker. So she worked before. And quite a few women work. I think quite a few of our women on dialysis actually do work, more so than the men. So of our 21 women, we do have quite a few of them who still work. And Nadia worked until not too long ago. As she said, as taxing as kidney disease is on your body and hemodialysis itself is on the body, you have to just keep on moving on. And I mean, her attitude, most of our women, if you think of Jana, if you think of so many of our female patients, Samantha, I mean, they're fighters, they're teachers, they are just fighters and warriors and survivors in a sense, because it is not something easy to deal with. So when you think of women, of course, you think of who carries the babies. The impact of kidney disease on pregnancy is significant.
Let's stop here, because that's another one of my areas. I don't have babies,
Right.
and I still hope although my parish priest said a little power jet, and that one fell brap in
Yeah,
my
but
plate,
boop.
and I was like, I'm supposed to eat that. It's not palatable. But somewhere over the rainbow, somewhere, I think I still have a chance of having. Yeah, but how is it motherhood and kidney disease? For instance, a person who is not yet diagnosed but is diagnosed during pregnancy.
Okay. It is difficult. Let's start from the fact that one of the most common ailments of pregnant women is something called preeclampsia. That's high blood pressure in pregnancy. You have approximately 10% of pregnant women being afflicted by preeclampsia. It can sometimes be fatal.
One in how many you said?
10%. So
10%, right.
Yes. So it is fatal. In fact, it is the most common cause of death in pregnancy. Preeclampsia, the main target organ of preeclampsia is the kidneys. So a patient who has preeclampsia, the blood pressures are hard to control. They may very well get cerebrovascular symptoms, a stroke, but most of the time the organ that is targeted is the kidneys. So you find they have excessive swelling of the feet, whereas most pregnant women, you would have the legs swelling, especially towards the end, but the loss of protein which could be associated with that, and just the kidney is targeted. And what the new studies are showing is that it certainly seems to target the kidneys a lot more than we thought, because the presumption with preeclampsia was always that once the baby is delivered, because you learn in medical school, what is the cure for preeclampsia in essence? When it's safe, and sometimes you do have to decide mommy or baby, even though it's too early for baby or similarly too early for baby, to save mommy's life, you do have to deliver. And that normally, or that is what was thought to be the cure for preeclampsia. The blood pressures generally would go right back down after that. What the new studies are showing, however, is that when you look at women who've had preeclampsia long term, certainly you've seen the impact. So if you do a kidney biopsy, that's taking a sample of the kidney in a woman who's had preeclampsia, there are changes which happened during the time that the blood pressures were high, even when it was treated, and the risk for that woman who had preeclampsia developing chronic kidney disease is higher than the woman who did not have preeclampsia, or the woman who was never pregnant. So certainly that is one aspect of chronic kidney disease as it relates to the woman. A woman who has kidney disease, be it that is already diagnosed or is not diagnosed, is always a high-risk pregnancy. Because if you have kidney disease, again, as Nadia alluded to, the kidneys perform quite a few functions, regulating your blood pressures, producing hormones, producing vitamin D, hence the reason activating vitamin D, because in the Caribbean, and that's just to put in another point, a segue here, that we just assume because it's a Caribbean and it's sunshine, everybody should be perfectly well fulfilled in vitamin D, and that is not the case. Testing for vitamin D, what we're finding is that quite a few people are quite deficient in vitamin D. So we're not getting out into the sun enough. And of course, if we get out into the sun, it's important that we use sunscreen, but we're not as glowing with vitamin D as we would like to think. But kidneys, the activation of vitamin D, because even though you get the rays of the sun, the vitamin D has to go through the liver, it's partly activated there, and then activation happens in the kidneys, and that's when it's able to do something for you.
So if you don't have healthy kidneys, then
you
that's
don't have
just,
the activation of the vitamin D. So the vitamin D is going to be low, so calcium and phosphorus are not balanced, and that affects your bones. So somebody with kidney disease which goes untreated for an extended period of time, certainly could have what we call a pathological fracture. And in some patients, that's how it's developed. A patient with a simplest thing, I just hit you, I just held you fairly gently, and you got a fracture. Why are those bones so brittle? Of course, there are other things that could potentially lead to it, but chronic kidney disease certainly is one of the things that leads to that. And it's quite common in patients on dialysis.
That would explain why a lot of patients who suffer from kidney disease have weak legs. So they're
Absolutely.
always painful. Their legs
Yes,
are-
yes, very, very
Absolutely
painful.
would. And the loss, you would see patients, for example, who were very tall, and then they become, quite apart from the fact that as you age,
Right,
there's a certain amount
osteoporosis,
of, yes, that happening. But in kidney disease, it could happen at an accelerated rate. So there is that happening. So as I said, pregnancy in somebody with kidney disease is high risk. So that person certainly has to be seen by the nephrologist, by the OB/GYN more often than the average normal pregnancy would be seen, because the risk for high blood pressure in that pregnancy is higher. The risk of your kidney disease worsening during your pregnancy is higher, and just all around there are more risks associated with that pregnancy. Now, can somebody with chronic kidney disease
Before we move on, I was just a little concerned here because I know a lot of people. The go-to thing now, I think, in my age group is, oh, just have a C-section if you're pregnant, and I'm not going through that push, have a C-section. But with kidney disease, how does having, maybe not end stage, but you're diagnosed, you're pregnant, how does that work?
Okay, now a C-section is never or should never be the go-to thing, and your OB/GYN will always tell you that. The physiological thing is to have a normal vaginal delivery. So there are certain indications for a cesarean section. So a baby who is in distress, the heart rate is falling, the respiratory rate is falling, a baby who's compressing the cord, a mother whose blood pressures are through the roof, and you must deliver to avoid a catastrophe. Those are the indications for a C-section, because of course it's quicker. So in those conditions, you can't have somebody push, and as you hear some people say, I was in labor for 24 hours. You can't have that happening because you're risking the life of not only the mother but the baby as well. So those are the indications for a C-section. Now with the rate, and I can't quote specific statistics right now, but certainly given the fact that it's higher risk pregnancies in patients with chronic kidney disease, it certainly is more likely that patients with chronic kidney disease would have more C-sections than the average person.
But doesn't that isn't that a conundrum in and of itself, because the kidneys are already compromised and you're having surgery and then you're introducing all of those drugs that have to now be expelled from the body through the kidneys. Isn't that now catch-22?
It is in a sense, but then once your kidneys are still working, they're doing something, you can expel. The time it takes to expel a certain drug, because again, most drugs are excreted through the kidneys, the time it takes may be more than what it would take if you had perfectly healthy kidneys, which are filtering at the rate that they're supposed to. But it would filter eventually, and that's important to note. So yes, as you say, it's a conundrum, but again, death is a bigger, when you're weighing against death, again, in medicine, it's always choose life. Or, you know, do no harm, do what would put baby and mommy at the least risk possible. So preterm deliveries, certainly more common in women with chronic kidney disease. Babies who are small for gestational age, certainly more common in women with chronic kidney disease. And that's for multiple reasons, because again, the kidneys, so many functions. Anemia or low blood count is not uncommon in pregnant women. As a reason, most pregnant women would be on iron, and of course you follow it for the neural birth, the baby's central nervous system and all of that. But certainly in a patient with chronic kidney disease, you have an extra reason to be anemic, in that the kidneys aren't producing a particular hormone called erythropoietin as efficiently as it should. So that causes the blood count to drop, certainly more than the average pregnant woman. So that has to be treated. The other hormonal deficiencies, the vitamin D deficiencies, and just general deficiencies in women with chronic kidney disease, which the average woman does not have, contributes to those situations where you have those smaller babies, those preterm deliveries, the high blood pressures, and a series of things. Quite apart from the fact that you may simply have to deliver that baby early to get those blood pressures down. So are there risks? Certainly. That would indicate there are risks. Now, can a woman on dialysis have a baby? It's possible. Not likely, but it is certainly possible, and there are anecdotal cases of women having
But who would want to put
babies.
that on?
Exactly. So, like I said, oopsies happen, and you know, these things, oopsies do happen, and women do get
Dr. Merle,
pregnant.
at this point, I don't think there should be any oopsies.
They do happen. They do happen, and Sometimes the babies don't necessarily make it through because of all of what is going on. Because I mean, it's difficult in and of itself by itself being on dialysis. So I mean, just the dialysis prescription for that lady has to change. You have to intensify her dialysis. You have to look at the condition, the things that could happen during dialysis. Blood pressure is dropping. That's not good for the baby. Because if your blood pressures are down, enough blood, now you're not serving only yourself, you're serving your baby. So if your blood pressures are dropping, adequate blood isn't getting to that baby. So there's so many things that do have to be taken into consideration, and it's an infinitely difficult pregnancy in a patient with who's on dialysis or with chronic kidney disease generally.
Wow. That's just amazing. It's like a whole bunch of information. I've had you on how many times now?
Like 4
and
or 5.
yeah, and every time it's like, ooh, it's just more information. It's like I almost have to take my brain out and, change the SIM card in there and put in a new one. We're due for a break, but when we come back, we'll have a mother and son situation to talk about kidney disease in the youth and what it's like to be a mother of a child with kidney disease. Please stay tuned.
I should move to let her come.
Welcome back and thank you for staying tuned to what's happening now with Flora. Earlier, I presented you with two guests, Mrs. Nadia Wicks, who is a patient, a renal patient, and Dr. Merle Clark, who is, I'd like to say, our resident nephrologist because she's my go-to on anything to do with the kidney and just health in general. With me now in this segment is Mrs. Nancy Charles and her son, David. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now, Nancy, you're becoming a staple. You're becoming a staple at DBS. When I got the call and I was told that we were having two patients, I never made the connection with your son, David being your son. What is it like being, and I know last week when you were with Rick, you mentioned about your son being a kidney patient. What's it like being one moment having a son who's almost 100% healthy, and then the next being shattered and he has end-stage kidney disease?
Ooh, well, I can say definitely settled right now. I'm a lot more relaxed. I have accepted. It took a while to get there. I think my son got there from day one. He was the strength of the family. Him being the patient and him being the one who was diagnosed. We were the ones all flustered, crying every day, worried, concerned, and everything. And he was the one who was keeping everybody calm, saying, "It's okay, I'm all right, I'll be fine." I don't think I ever saw my son shed a tear, perhaps until December of 2016. That was a few months after he was diagnosed. So when he was diagnosed, we needed to take him and they told us he needed to be on dialysis right away. However, the doctors were trying to find a way to find out what exactly transpired because what happened really was that on Easter, the Easter weekend of 2016, my son was riding a bike and he fell and he broke his leg, and a bicycle, that is. And we took him to the hospital and he had to undergo surgery to get the leg repaired. And the doctor, he spent a lot of time actually. We found it was very strange that he spent so much time in the recovery unit. And the doctor came to us afterwards and said to us that we almost lost your son. He had to have a few blood transfusion, and so he said to us he found it was very strange for a young teenager at the age of 21 who was losing so much blood during a routine. It was routine in terms of a broken leg, and so he wanted to conduct some further tests, and so they did the test, and that is how we found out. When the results came back, the doctor called us in, and then he says to me, "Your son has stage 5 renal failure." That was it. So
Wow,
from
so
being
going from non-existent
to stage 5. To a certain extent, we were very grateful after we spoke about it that, in hindsight, it was a good thing that he fell and broke his leg, and then we found out so he could have gotten the necessary treatment, because had that not happened, he probably would have just fallen down one day and he would have been
Never
dead,
gotten up.
and we wouldn't be asking why, what happened. But from that time, we did a lot of tests. We went to Martinique to get some further diagnosis. It was a lot of up and down, and until really and truly his condition worsened in December of that same year, and then we had to put him on dialysis. There were a number of challenges. But in essence, he's now settled. The family is settled, but it was a huge change for us. As a mom, you never ever get over it. You think about it all the time. It's always at the back of your mind. You keep a positive spirit. You try not to worry and to live your life as usual. But it's like sometimes I always check on him in the morning and wake up and make sure that he's okay. It's just this nagging little feeling that you have at the back of your head that anytime anything can happen. You're not too sure what and you're not too sure why, but so it really is, it's difficult at times. But as I said, this young man is sunshine. Everybody he comes into contact with will tell you that he's so positive. He's not flustered about it, and he's trying as much as possible to just live his life as normal as he can.
Wow. I mean, I'm listening to you, Nancy, and I'm thinking, oh my God. Like, I have no kids, but I'm thinking, I would be a mess. Like, I would be all...
I was.
Even now, even now, because my friend, when she's a bit settled now with her disease, but I still have night chills, and I still wake up with the fear that, okay, something, and I would have to call her. I have to call her because I would just be, working myself up to, and I would crying and all of that, and that's a friend. So kudos to you, the strength, and I know that you say your son is the source of your strength, but it's amazing. You could talk about it and with composure. What about you, David? How was it like for you hearing, I was just riding my bike, I broke my leg, and now, it's not just a broken leg. You kind of have no kidneys too. How was that for you?
Honestly, hearing it for the first time, I just smiled because I'm a really strong believer in God. So I believe that everything happens for a reason. So in my mind, I was just going through scenarios of why it happened, what really is the reason for me having kidney failure. And then, aside from the first day they told me, up to now, recently I told my mother that I think I've found really what my calling is, and that's to be an encouragement, and I think that's why it happened. That's why I got kidney. Just went through that just to encourage others and to just tell them how great and big God we serve.
Wow, that's amazing. I think I went through a little nothing major. Like, now I feel so stupid, but for me at the time it was like, oh my gosh, the world is coming to an end. And I really began to question God, and I began to ask, is there really a God? Why am I going through this? Like, why at my age, why am I going through this? Is that necessary? Like, why? But to hear you, I mean, this happened when you on the cusp of setting out in this new adventure of life. You coming from a child into an adult, and you're looking forward to new experiences, different experiences, and then you have to deal with that, and you're thinking, okay, oh well, yeah, it's okay. Maybe my calling is to encourage other people. I have heard other people's testimonies, in particular men, the male testimonies, and how they rebelled and they did everything counter to what they were supposed to do to keep their kidneys healthy as long as possible, including destroying the transplants that they had. And here you are being so upbeat. Like, I mean, I know you said you have a firm belief in God, but do you have any moments of doubt, like in your mind, in your quiet moments when nobody's looking and you, the inevitability of it all, How is that?
Honestly, no. Because I really believe that something good will come
out of it.
Yeah.
How do you deal with your friends? Your friends look at you differently? Do they treat you more fragilely, or do they? Yeah.
A little, but when I really, on most occasions, when I really explain to them what really I doing, what really I going through, what really I just go and do at Tapio twice a week, they came to understand, because nowadays there was on one occasion I told someone that I was on dialysis, and they asked me if I have cancer, and I was like,
okay.
how
does cancer factor in here?
How y'all really don't know what dialysis is? Because I don't know, because
Yeah, but what you're saying is so important. It just highlights how ignorant we are of those things. I mean, for me, I'm thinking, where cancer, where it comes in. But until you really know, until you really interface with somebody, there are lots of things that I can talk about comfortably or with some level of confidence about kidney disease now because of my experience with my friend. But there's so much more that I don't know, and I'm certain I may be talking to somebody and they'll be like, how come you don't know about that? You know? but for somebody else, they might be thinking, how do you know all of those things? So it just brings to the fore how ignorant we are of the things that do not afflict us personally. So I really think that it's a commendable thing that you're doing, like for you to talk to people and to really educate people as to what kidney disease is. Because a lot of times we could talk about anything. We could talk to anybody who could just be giving us information. But coming from somebody so young and who is there, I think there's a lot to be learned, a lot for us to learn, and for it to resonate and to stick with in our minds, in our psyches, what you're really going through. So walk us through a week, any given week of your life being a kidney patient.
Any given week. Sunday, normal church, just at home. Mondays, wake up early in the morning, prepare what I need to go up to Castries for treatment, and just get into the dialysis unit at Tapio. Everybody's there, just
You go on your own?
Yeah.
Like you take the bus or you
No.
drive?
No, there's someone that works at Tapio that lives next to my
to you.
house.
So you get a ride with him?
Yeah. So when we get there, just me sit down, wait until they call me in, and just sit there. Whilst I'm waiting, I most likely go get the remote for the TV, because there's TV, there's internet. I most likely.
So you're not bored. You're engaged.
Yeah, you're engaged. Whilst I'm waiting, we just talk, because everybody there talks. The people that are on my shift, which dialyze same time with me, we kind of a little bit younger than most.
Okay.
So we talk, we laugh, we have fun. So
it's a comfortable, easy.
It's a comfortable
No,
environment.
I don't understand that, because for me, I'm sitting there. I'm already on edge. Like I'm sitting there and I'm sitting erect, and I'm like on the edge of my seat. And I'm like, okay, I came to get dialyzed, and he's saying they're talking and watching TV and laughing
and then comes the point where they have to needle you with needles the size of a headphone jack, which is
no, Nancy, this is the part where I die already, because I don't do needles very well. I mean, I have tried to give blood on several occasions, and every time they've had to turn me down because my blood pressure goes up. My eyes start to roll back from the time I see the needles. I remember my sisters both had to go do surgery at some point or another, and they needed to, they were anemic, so I had to, and then, we had to donate blood, and I had to come back for one sister 4 times, and every time they're like, why you keep coming back? I'm like, but that's my little sister, and she needs the blood, and I have the blood type that I can give anybody, so I need to, but it's either my blood pressure is up, or I am so in a panic that I can't, and you're saying that it's...
My first experience was horrible when they first took him to the unit. when I saw those, when I saw some of the patients as well, because I mean, just to give people a visual picture of what happens is that two needles are more or less stuck in your veins, and so blood goes through the machine. The machine, I mean, in normal terms, maybe there's technical terms for it, but the machine more or less cleanses out the blood, which is what the kidney should do, and then it pumps it back into your system. So you sit there and you watch these people on the machine with this thing in their arm,
And you can see the blood?
all the blood. You see the blood for the thing, for the tubes that it goes through the machine. And I thought, oh my God, that's what they have to put in my son, because one of the things about my son is that he has very small veins. And so it took us, I think, we had to have 3 surgical procedures to get to be able to get him ready to go on the machine. So initially, because the first procedure did not work, he had a catheter inserted through somewhere in his chest, and that is where he was being dialyzed until he was able to go through the normal process
Let's
as
see.
everybody
Let's see
else.
the
So
wow.
right. So it was quite an experience watching others, and I'm like, oh my God, they have to put my son for that, and they have to put these big needles in there. It wasn't me, but I felt it. I felt it going through my entire body. But he was cool, calm. He went on the machine, and he went through the process, and I was like, okay. And then you get used to it after a while, after you've seen it a couple of times. But it's not something that I do. If I do drop him at the unit or I pick him up or something, I deliberately, I don't really go in to watch the others. I would just pop in, say hi to some of the staff, and step back. But
I would. This is the point where I'm dead and expired, and I don't know if I'm dead how I can expire after that. But I would be dead and then expire, because for one, I can't do needles, and for two, I can't stand the sight of blood, which is why I'm not a doctor or nurse or anything to do with the medical profession. I mean, my mom will tell you as a kid, if I get blood all over me, I'd be like, okay, take it off. Like if it's my arm, I got to cut, take it off. Like just take the whole thing. I don't know how that works, but you know, your mind just doesn't work right when it's scared. So for me, that's just terrifying. And you go through that twice a week.
Yeah, twice a week.
So when you're in the chair being dialyzed, what's it like for you? What do you do?
Just sit down there, connect to the Wi-Fi through my phone, watch TV.
And how long does it take? How long does the dialysis take?
Normally, it takes four hours for, like, normally. But in my case, it's 3.5. So...
Why it takes 3.5? Because you're so tiny? Like,
yeah, I think so. Or I think so. Yeah, it's because of that.
Yeah,
because I'm a little bit smaller than
most
the
people.
average.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it takes a little bit shorter. But on the whole 4 hours, it goes by.
So
fairly
what's the
quickly.
feeling after dialysis? How do you feel after?
The first time when I dialyzed, which was in 2016, Christmas Day it was.
Wow.
Christmas Day. I couldn't walk because, like, how can I explain that? I was walking on air. Seriously.
Wow.
Like I couldn't, my father had to help me, like, walk to get to the van because, like, I was literally walking on air. Like,
now my
all that
friend
talk-
says that she feels like she has plastic legs. Like when she's used to it, the feeling now.
Right,
But she said
like
when she
it's
first started, she
jiggling,
almost
like
feel,
you
like
cannot-
she had no control of
Yeah.
her legs. I didn't understand that, but now that you're saying it, I can imagine it more because I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's just a
Right.
one-off thing, but it seems to be an after effect
That's
of,
the first, because, like, they take out all the toxins because not being dialyzed, like, before you go on dialysis, like, you feel, like, really heavy, like, you feel lazy and sluggish. So after dialysis, for the first time, you'll feel really light and on air, because my mother would tell you when she saw me coming into her office, I had a big smile on my face.
like you
Yeah.
had some sort of how do you call this when they give you to calm your nerves. And yeah, I remember I had this I remember I was in an accident or something they gave me, and I was just like, I never want to feel like that, because it's almost like you have no control
Yes,
over your
over
feelings or
anything.
anything. Yeah.
Just
So that's
relax.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not in any pain or anything like that. Now I noticed that you walk with a cane. Is that because of the broken leg or is that because of
Yeah, that was because of the broken leg. Like, because of the renal failure, my bones were like very soft. So the screws in the metal, it started to come out because it was very
it was
soft,
holding,
so it couldn't
right.
hold. So it's trying to come out at the top. So that's why it's looks crooked like
Okay,
that. But I
alright.
can't put any too
your
much
pressure
weight
on it? Yeah.
It hurts after a while. So,
Okay.
but coming soon, that will get fixed.
Yeah. Oh, I just love, you're so right. He's a ray of sunshine. He's so positive coming soon. That will be fixed. And I'm thinking, I would be thinking, for me, I would be thinking, ugh, you know, like, ugh, boy,
Well, he's-
you know, but he's so positive.
Well, he had started, he was almost at the end of his first year at Sir Arthur Lewis when the incident happened. And now, because of the leg and it's not healed properly, he now has one leg shorter than the other. So he has to use a cane to walk. So he's not able to climb the steps to go back to school at Sir Arthur. And so we have to get some corrective surgery to straighten the leg and to ensure that he can go back to school. So it's one of the things he keep hounding me about every
Okay,
single
yeah,
day.
'cause he
Mommy,
wants to go back to
I need to
school."
go back to school. I'm tired of being in the house. I need to go back to school. I need to go back to school. So
And he
we're
was
definitely
diagnosed in
making-
2016.
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing. I really love your spirit, and I honestly I agree with you. I think, you know, older people say, God doesn't take you through what He cannot take you out of,
Right.
and I think that's why He gave you that burden, and that's why He gave you that cross, because you could deal with it and you could find the positives out of it. I perhaps couldn't. I have a lot of talents. I have a lot of gifts in other areas. That's not one of it. Pain isn't one of it. Talking about pain isn't one of it. Looking at people in pain isn't one of it. Seeing blood and taking needles, certainly not one of it. So, you know, my cheese, that's not my cheese. That's not for my bread at all. And I really appreciate you coming through and talking about, I don't want to say ordeal because it's not an ordeal. It's more of an ordeal for me who's not afflicted, but for you, you're carrying that so well.
Experience.
Yes, it's that. Thank you for coming in and sharing that experience, because I think a lot of people, a lot of young people, need to understand that it's not the end of the world. You could be afflicted with anything, any disease, any illness, especially when it's not one that you called upon yourself. It's not a lifestyle disease. It's not something that you participated actively in getting, and be able to deal with it and say, okay, well, this is what it is. How can I move on from there? I really appreciate that. We're due for a break, but when we come back, we'll be taking some of your calls and we'll be interacting more with our guests. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and thank you for staying tuned to What's Happening Now with Laura. In the last segment, we spoke with Mom and son duo Nancy and David Charles with regard to the ordeal that they're going. You know, I really have to stop that word ordeal, because for me, as a non-patient, as a person who is healthy, who has healthy kidneys, to me it seems like an ordeal. But having spoken with David, I think he's such an inspiration. You know, it's something that he's going through. It's an experience. He's living his life differently to us, to other people. But it's not an ordeal. He's not carrying the world on his shoulders. He's not beaten. He's not down. He's not out. He's very much upbeat and ready to conquer. And I like the word that you use, Nadia. He's a warrior, you know, and he's looking to inspire other people who are going through what he's going through, or even those, especially young people, who are not yet or going through, maybe will never go through, but to get them to have that understanding of what it's like, you know. And having spoken with him, you understand there's a lot of us out there who are totally ignorant of what kidney disease is all about and the effects and what it's, you know, what you're going through when you're being dialyzed. Now, I know that you're a mom and you're a wife, and you going through kidney failure. What is it like with in terms of your eating and how that has changed in your household, what you eat and what you feed your kids? And then we want to go into the Renal Association, what the support is that you're getting as a result of being a part of the Renal Association.
Okay. Well, you have to appreciate that when you're a kidney patient, you cannot eat like normal people. But you do have to control the sodium, the sugar. Also, we have potassium. There's a certain limit on the fruits and the vegetables that you can eat, because a lot of toxins are introduced into your body. Well, it's not introduced as toxins, as food. But when you eat, when your body processes the food, to get rid of the waste products, your kidneys no longer do that. So you, for what you eat, have to monitor what you eat so that you do not put your body into a toxic overload.
Even water, I understand.
Yes.
Intake of water is so
Yes.
critical.
You do have to monitor the amount of fluid that you take in, because somebody like me, I no longer urinate. So whatever fluid I drink stays in my body until this dialysis machine removes it.
Oh, wow.
So I have to be very careful, and with the amount of fluid that you take in, it puts more pressure on your heart. So you cannot take in too much fluid, because that would make your heart have to pump harder, work harder, raise your blood pressure. It does a lot. It's a lot of like a balancing act when you're on dialysis with what you eat, what you drink. But normally and traditionally, this disease comes along because of hypertension and diabetes. And we do know that in St. Lucia, we like our highly seasoned food. We like our KFC.
Sis, let me tell you, the highly seasoned foods. I have a sister, if it didn't have salt in it, it ain't good. Now, I used to be like that to a great extent for most of my life. I went through this phase where I reduced because of where I was staying. I had no choice, because then people just never cooked with salt. So I had no choice. But then whenever I reintroduced salt, I would have the cracking of my lips and it would be burning, and I'd be drinking all that more water, because it's almost as if my body had gotten disused or disabused of the salt intake. But for you guys, you can't take any of that.
You can, but you have to monitor it. With your diet on dialysis, usually you work with a dietitian and they let you know what you can have, the certain amount of this, the certain amount of that. But for me, although I'm not, I wouldn't say that I'm a stickler to the rules. I do what works best for me. I take in the fruits and vegetables that go with me, because with dialysis you get things like acid reflux, you get a lot of other things that come along. You know, it comes with a whole host of other evils. So
now, you mentioned earlier about potassium, and in my head I just had to say that I'm seeing bananas, because I love bananas. And I know my friend used to love bananas, and you know all of those things, like you can't really have any because of the high potassium.
The way I would take bananas is the day of dialysis, like the morning, then I would have bananas. But mango season is terrible for me, because you know we Lucian, we love our
And
mangoes.
you can't have one.
One, oh my goodness.
There's no such thing.
No, I remember when I was on dialysis at Tapio, I'm at OKU now, but I remember when they used to do the blood test and the lady would tell me, "You've been into these mangoes again," because the potassium would be like,
Out the door. Oh my God.
but I mean, you can't have just
Just
one.
one banana. So you cheat a little bit and have it on the day of dialysis.
On the day,
'Cause
on the
you know,
day,
just get rid
yes.
of that.
So,
you're
you
going to get
know.
rid of it anyway. So let's just have it there.
Yeah.
Right. So, but how has that affected your family? Do your children eat like you? Does your husband eat like you?
I wish my children ate like me. My daughter, oh my goodness, my daughter likes that fast food, and I'm saying, I mean, you have a prime example in your family of what can happen if you don't. I mean, it's obvious that my kidney failure is not because of my diet, but a lot of it is diet related. So you know, we always have this battle. My husband is a vegan, so no butter and no sugar, no.
Is there such a thing?
There is, and as you can
Just
see,
survive.
he looks very strong and healthy. Yeah,
Yeah. You survive with no sugar. I mean,
no sugar, no butter, no meat, and
there's no such thing. I was just about to say, I hope the camera is not on. Oh, there's no such thing. Oh yes, there is. I mean, they're called vegans.
there is, yes.
Yeah, but what kind of support do you guys get as renal patients from the association? What are some of the services provided?
Well, I am the president of the St. Lucia Renal Association, and our mandate is to provide support for patients that are already afflicted with kidney disease, be it they on dialysis or not. But our major task, what we take to heart, is prevention. I believe that there is no country in the world that can dialyze everybody that needs dialysis. It is a social cost that is very high. So what we can do, our part, is to prevent as many people as possible from getting to this stage. Dr. Clark might tell you that maybe from stage 1 to 3, it is reversible. But from the time you hit stage 4, 5, you need that kind of palliative care. Being dialysis. So
from stage 1 to stage 3 is
It's not reversible.
but
No.
you can slow down the
Slow
process.
down the
Right.
process,
Yes.
the progress
Right.
of the disease.
Right. But then we don't know at that point. Like, is there?
You have no symptoms. That's why
Right.
it's important that people come in, because in those early stages, what may be detectable, for example, is protein in your urine. Something may be wrong if your urine looks perfectly normal, your nice straw-colored urine, but if you test it, then you may find something, and that is why it's important if you're yearly physical that you get your urine tested as well.
So that's what I was just about to ask. Is there something that we could do?
Very simple.
Right. So every year.
Very simple, absolutely.
From what age do we start?
Now that is a hard. It's there's no definitive data that says you start at that age, but one could say, for example, you become an adult at 18, so perhaps at 18 you start doing a yearly physical.
Right, a yearly physical,
yearly
and then you
physical,
get your
yeah.
blood work, your
Exactly.
urine tests, and all of that.
Of course, if you have a
great.
family history of certain things, that may be tested more thoroughly. But as a general rule, just your basic test and get your urine tested.
Couple $100, guys, could
It
save
saves
us
you.
a couple $1 million. 'Cause
Absolutely.
dialysis is not cheap.
oh
It is
my,
not
oh my.
That is an understatement. If ever there were an
And I
understatement.
just realized that
is
there is
not.
the medication, and I thought if
Absolutely.
it was you just plug into a machine,
No.
No.
that there is medication that goes with it.
Absolutely. Because
And that
remember
is
at the
one
beginning,
cost, and then
I said that it's replacing some of the functions of the kidneys. And the functions essentially that it's replacing is the removal of excess, because when you urinate, your kidneys produce urine. So the dialysis of removing excess fluid, it does that. It removes the toxins. But who's taking care of the red blood cells that the kidneys were producing,
high
the
blood
vitamin D levels that the kidneys were producing, the excess potassium, because as a general rule, your doctor is telling you potassium, phosphorus. Generally, it's wonderful. Have all the bananas you like and just eat a healthy diet, which is rich in potassium, rich in phosphorus, so much so that quite a few foods are enriched with phosphorus, which is why it makes it so difficult sometimes for a patient with chronic kidney disease to have the diet restricted in phosphorus and restricted in potassium, because we enriching those things. Generally, you need it for bone health, for teeth health, the health of your teeth, and so many other things.
Right. So what are some of the activities that the Renal Association right now is undergoing? And by the way, guys, you can give us a call. It's 4519788, or you can send me your WhatsApp messages on 284-6536 to join in the conversation. Maybe there's a question you want to ask the doctor, you want to ask Mrs. Weeks with regard to her condition or treatment of kidney disease.
Well, we take part in a lot of sensitization. We go to the different schools, we speak to the children, because I believe if you get them early, then it is possible that you can quell the tide of
Right. And
kidney
they're the real
failure.
decision makers, because they, at
Absolutely.
school, mommy, we learn this, and then they bring the information home.
For sure. So we do a lot of talks with students. We hoping to do a lot more across the island as time goes by. But we just concluded our Celebrity Sports Day,
How was
which
that?
is excellent. Which is a time when we get some of the the doctors and some of the performers, different people to come together and engage in a day full of sports and activities. We try to sell healthy food, although this year I really hope it was healthy.
We don't always succeed, and in part it goes to, again, the same way just a while ago you said, oh, is that possible? If you go selling like we tried to do in the first year, just healthy, just your fruit, just your vegetables, nobody buys it. And like perhaps we just need to be doing the same way Nadia is saying. Her daughter lives with somebody with chronic kidney disease, yet she likes her junk. And it's hard to take away somebody's junk completely. And I don't think any doctor has ever said once a year, nobody ever says at Christmas you can't have a glass of wine. So it's not a question of us promoting. I think that bit of criticism did come up. If you're not promoting healthy lifestyle while you're selling, for example, barbecue and that kind of thing, and the counter argument is, certainly we're not asking you to eat barbecue every single day, but this was a social outing, Sunday afternoon, so we did have some of that and mix it up with, of course,
Right.
the healthy living,
Right.
along with the information.
And I think that's
that we're
realistic
trying-
living.
Realistic,
is what
there you go.
yeah.
And I'm a very realistic
Yes,
physician.
Yes,
I'm
because
very
you're
realistic in
never
that.
going to eradicate all of those
You're not.
foods or all of our lifestyle habits.
Absolutely.
We're always going to have
Yeah,
it, but it's the
moderation.
right.
Moderation is key.
And you know, as said Lucians, there are certain things that we like.
Oh yes, you can't
We
be a
like-
Saint Lucian if you don't have a little pork, if you don't have a little barbecue, you
Yeah.
don't have a glass of wine. And I say wine, at the
Yeah.
corner of my mouth.
No, but wine is okay. There's no
But
physician,
yeah.
barring short of you having fulminant liver failure, there's no physician that's going to say you can't have alcohol. There are permissible amounts of alcohol for women and for men that actually you could have daily. There's small studies which seem to actually indicate that it's protective. Certain wines actually have a protective effect on the heart. So nobody ever says absolutely no. It's all about moderation. Anything done to excess, even the seemingly healthy things done in excess, is bad for you.
Right.
It's moderation is key.
Great. So what are some of the other activities? And I know that the day has passed, but you still have a
Yes,
number
absolutely.
of activities
Yes.
for the month.
What we plan to do, well, we did have a health fair at the same time we had the Celebrity Sports Day. Although the health fair wasn't so well.
Patronized?
Yes. So what we will do, maybe next year we will separate it. So we do the health fair. We also had all the other associations came on board. The hypertensive and diabetic. We had the Cancer Society. I'm not sure if the lupus was there or the sickle cell, but
They
all the
couldn't make it, but they have
associations,
sticks
yes,
in, yes.
all the other associations, we had them invited so we could come together and show a unified front.
Absolutely.
Because we have so many illnesses in St. Lucia that could be preventable. Some of them are lifestyle diseases, and it is 100% our responsibility to, if you're already in it like me, to try to warn people from
Absolutely.
going there. And that is what we do with the Renal Association. We try
Because
to
a lot of it is like you said, it's lifestyle, and you can prevent it. And I mean, right now, first in St. Lucia is healthcare. That's our
Yeah.
biggest issue
Yes.
on the table. We can't afford healthcare. We don't want our hospitals privatized. But what are we doing to ensure that we get the quality of healthcare that we
Absolutely.
deserve?
Yeah.
If we're putting excessive amounts of pressure on that healthcare,
Yeah.
as compromised as it is already, it will just continue to further denigrate and become more compromised. So what am I doing to ensure that I don't have to be in and out of the hospital? What am I doing to ensure that I don't become I don't need dialyzing? What am I doing to ensure
Yeah.
that I don't need insulin injections every day? Because I couldn't do that. What am I doing to ensure that whatever monies that I'm able to save as a youngster while I'm working,
Right.
that when I'm retired, I can actually enjoy my retirement and not be, have a compromised standard of living because of the things that I did before.
yes.
All very important questions. Again, think of what I can do for my country as opposed to what my country can do for me.
Right.
And I do think, because we talk a lot, and I think certainly since I'm a palapata, unabashedly, I'm a palapata, mwepakahot. And the thing, since I got here in 2013, when I got here, 2013, we've been doing a lot of educating, but you do wonder, where is the information? Because like you said in your preamble, even with the march, did we ever mention, because we were talking even ahead of the march about World Kidney Day and the fact that it was coinciding with International Women's Day, and the theme was all about women. It was kidneys and women's health, include, value, empower. It really was a perfect theme. Couldn't be more apt. But then, did that message get through?
You weren't
Did
included.
that message get through? And that's why you
and
wonder,
you
we
weren't able to
hear,
empower other women
we
to
hear what we
Yeah.
want to hear,
Yeah.
and that is
Yeah.
a problem. So at the Renal Association, along with the Bureau of Health Education, it certainly is always a question, what can we do to ensure that people hear you? Because you understand, people hear, when it's music, people hear that. When it's politics, people hear that. How do you get people to hear the message of healthy living, healthy lifestyles to prevent? Because of course everybody, when it's too late, then everybody understands. But how do we prevent? And prevention really is a key word. As Nadia implied, there is no country which can reasonably afford renal replacement therapy for everybody with end-stage kidney disease. Because everybody thinks it's glorious, for example, in the US and Canada. But when you're in the background doing the work and you have to be talking to immigration lawyers who want to send patients from the US who are St. Lucians who've been there for 8 years and 10 years and 15 years home, because as far as you're concerned, this is costing us a whole lot of money. And we need to send those people home. And your counter argument, well, if you're sending home,
They'll
you're
die.
sending
You-
them
you
home
said,
to
yeah,
die.
you may as well-
Literally giving them a death
give them
sentence.
a lethal
So
injection,
it's
yeah.
not as easy and as simple as people think. And to think we are going to be able to treat everybody who requires dialysis, it is difficult with our resources.
Right. Okay, so we're running out of time. We didn't get calls today, but I'm getting messages here. Oh, we have, I've been ignoring my WhatsApp, but we have a message here. This is from a kidney patient. I noticed that I'm getting darker in complexion since I started dialysis. What is the cause of that?
All right. Again, you look at the functions of the kidneys, and we tend to look at the basic ones, but there's so many other things that kidneys do. And one of the reason patients with kidney disease tend to have darker skin sometimes because they're retaining something called urochromes, among other substances that are being retained because your kidneys aren't getting rid of them as they should, and we take that for granted. Oh, I want to pee, and I go and I pee, and we don't quite understand the importance of what happens when you urinate. So even with patients on dialysis, where you're having those basic toxins, those that you mentioned, the creatinine in the beginning, that is being cleared, and phosphorus is being cleared, and potassium is being cleared. There's so many other things which are not cleared very efficiently via conventional hemodialysis, and those things do have an impact. You do get high levels of those things that we don't always measure. You know it. You don't always measure the implications of that in terms of heart disease and that kind of thing, but one of those is your urochromes, and that's what tends to settle on the skin and causes the darkening. In some people, it's more pallor because of the anemia, because you don't have this erythropoietin being produced as efficiently, and replacing erythropoietin is not cheap. It's a lot cheaper than it was when I got here, where it was $100 per vial.
Wow.
Now it's about $29 per vial.
Okay.
But imagine asking somebody every time you come to dialysis, and let's remember, in the public sector, dialysis is already $150 per session. You need erythropoietin, $100 per vial, and there are so many other medications that you need. So the
Right.
cost can build up, and it really is not sustainable. It really, the average person cannot afford it. As
right.
simple as that.
And so if you don't have this vial, this $100 vial, this is
the blood count goes down. If the blood count stays down continuously, the strain on the heart starts getting big. You go into heart failure, and then the most frequent cause of death in a patient on dialysis is indeed heart disease. So anemia is an important issue because
Right.
an anemic patient is a patient there's stress on the heart, and we do need to correct.
right. So as an anemic patient, a kidney patient who's anemic, is there, what can be done? Like,
So quite apart from the
Okay.
Nat?
Well, for me, I am an anemic kidney patient, and you need to be on the erythropoietin that she spoke about 3 times a week. And what it does is it mimics what the kidney used to do to produce the red blood cells. Also, you noted that your friend feels like her legs are plastic. It is because there are these toxins that accumulate around the joints. Because if you notice the way I walk like, somebody that has this serious arthritis or something. So it accumulates around your elbows, your knees. So you walk with a lot of pain. So tell her, do not lose hope. I mean, there are people. It would be nice if we could get in touch with her, so she would know that she has that support out there.
right.
Absolutely.
Okay. And giving up is never an option.
Yes.
Another person says here, this is a super program and great guests, providing the information simply, openly, and well delivered. So congratulations to you guys. You guys are really hitting it home. We have a number of other WhatsApp messages that we won't be able to go through, but they're not calling, but they're sending the WhatsApp message and saying that, they're getting the information. So we need to have you guys back in to constantly be talking about, because one of the things I find with public service announcements, in particular, in general, we say it once, we say it twice, we say it 3 times, and that's it. And then we
It
move
is
on
true.
to the other thing. There's no sustained
Yes.
flow of
And
information.
we accuse of that yearly, and it's true perhaps. In March, there is we go out, we go here, we go there, we get to the children,
Yeah,
and
you
then
get
boom.
that
Yes,
that
and then-
heavy dose, and
yeah.
then there's nothing to sustain and to
You're absolutely
continue
right.
the process. Final comments.
I want to let everyone know out there who is suffering from kidney disease that it is not a death sentence. It is not the end of the world. You watch what you eat, you take care of yourself, you exercise as much as you can, which is not much because the joints and the knees, and you watch your fluid intake, which is essential. You just be happy. Be happy because you are not dead yet. and you are not going to die for a long time. I've been on dialysis for 10 years, and we
Oh,
do
wow.
have other patients that are there
22
for
years
16,
and
22 years.
And you
So,
got diagnosed at stage 5,
yes,
and you're here for 10 years.
yes.
There
And
is
you
a
can
God.
see we look healthy and strong.
Look
So
at her.
please
Absolutely.
live your life and be happy.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful, Dr. Merle.
I mean, it's a hard disease to deal with, and it's expensive. I mean, I can never speak enough of how expensive it is, because I think I can't afford this, you know. And I mean, it's very expensive to treat.
This
so
is
we
a
must
doctor saying
fo-
that you can't afford this, guys. No, seriously.
It's,
We're
no, it's a
laughing
serious
of it, but
thing.
for
It's
me,
a serious
serious.
thing.
This is
Without
a
health
doctor saying that you can't
insurance,
afford
it's
it.
virtually impossible. It's very expensive.
Exactly. Now, just
So-
imagine the mom who is a
A doctor
single
with
mom
no
of
children.
5.
I have 2 dogs and 1 cat.
There you go. Now, just imagine a mom with 5 kids, all under the age of 18.
Yeah,
and then
it's
she's
difficult.
afflicted. That's nowhere in the picture, and she's got to do it all.
Absolutely. It's not easy. So prevention really has to be the key. And again, we're looking at almost 70% of the cases being a result of diabetes and hypertension. So there is a whole lot we can do. If we prevent those, or if we control those adequately, there is a lot we can do to prevent end-stage kidney disease and chronic kidney disease. However, there is that 30% basket, for example, in cases of lupus, which certainly afflicts women more. In the cases of people who have problems with their urinary tract, and you may have some blockage that causes the problem, then that makes it a bit more difficult. But certainly in men, enlarged prostates causing end-stage kidney disease is simply unnecessary and unfortunate and tragic, because those things could be detected early and prevented. Cervical cancer in women can be detected, precancerous lesions, because cervical cancer, if it's allowed to progress, you have tumors which obstruct the urinary tract, and sometimes the cause of death is actually the high toxin levels and the high potassium levels from kidney disease. So prevention, prevention, prevention really is our key word, and we can do a lot as it pertains to prevention of chronic kidney disease and end-stage kidney disease.
Thank you guys so much for coming through. I mean,
for having
I
us.
will have you back again. Well, you know you're just, it's just say the word and you're here, and I'm so grateful for that. I think it's not very often that you get professionals who are so passionate about what they do and can talk about it so eloquently and so effortlessly. And I'm like, yes, I'm there with you. You know, as the viewer said earlier, simply put, just delivered the information that you some of them words, Merle. Did you take we'll talk afterwards about about whether you took a course into learning how to pronounce those words, but the information not diluted by that anyway. So thank you guys so much for coming. And again, St. Lucians, remember, as Dr. Merle said, it's prevention. There's so much that we could do to prevent ourselves from having substandard living. So please, if there's anything that you take away from this, is take care of your bodies, take care of your minds, take care of yourselves and each other. So until next week, adieu. Thank you so much for